Hello, welcome to the Che Katara channel, and to the people who support my voice. Much love. Well, today's topic is sadly Venezuela. For several months now, as we can see in the news, at least for today, it's all over the major news networks, but for several months now, Venezuela has been caught in a series of turbulent events involving a devastated economy and increasingly totalitarian government that is, quote, socialist. Yeah, not socialist, just corrupt and bumbling. We also see devastating imperial U.S. orchestrated sanctions and an associated malnutrition that will, it seems, devastate Venezuelans not only yesterday, not only today, not only tomorrow, but perhaps for generations to come. Also, we see the forceful, powerless reality with the virtual takeover of Citgo by the United States. This devastation, furthermore, involves at the highest political levels a standoff between a Maduro government and so far a supportive military cadre against one Juan Guaido amidst instability, turbulence, and mass deprivation inside the country itself. Juan Guaido Marquez, the opponent to Nicolas Maduro at the very highest levels, is a 35-year-old who is coordinating with U.S. clandestine operations in a protracted coup attempt. He is providing what is called a social democratic alternative in Venezuela, allegedly. His youth might be part of his appeal as a brand who could hold power for a long time and transition to a fully neoliberal economy. But the economy under Maduro did have elements, or I should say more so under Hugo Chavez, did have elements of socialism, elements of challenge to neoliberalism, but still was captive to the neoliberal global economy and its priorities, as Maduro currently is allowing transnational corporations, this is an example, to extract resources from indigenous lands at a horrific rate in what amounts to one of the biggest environmental catastrophes globally. Certainly an aspect of neoliberalism, and Nicolas Maduro is putting his foot on the gas, so to speak. Who is this Nicolas Maduro? He's a 56-year-old born in Caracas, Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro has served as president since the death of Hugo Chavez in 2013. Maduro began his working life as a bus driver and rose to become a trade union leader. At around the age of 37, he found himself elected to the National Assembly under the Fifth Republic movement and has since 2007 been part of the United Socialist Party. By 2014, as president of Venezuela, living standards. He became president after the death of Hugo Chavez in 2013, so in office for about a year in 2014. Living standards were seen to be decreasing drastically, and I remember meeting some people from Venezuela giving me their own account of these circumstances. So, in 2014, dissent and dissatisfaction blossomed for the once popular Bolivarian movement. I'm going to leave the Bolivarian movement itself aside in this video. That is another topic for another day. Maduro's mismanagement of the economy on levels of fiscal, environmental, infrastructure, goals, and priorities, as well as the destruction of swaths of indigenous territory now in progress, can only be seen as unbearable, undeniable, and indefensible. Unfortunately, the historic experience has been, at least for substantial parts of the left, they tend to analyze conflicts like the present one in Venezuela today in either petty Marxist or Cold War terminology, discourse, such as imperialism versus anti-imperialism, or justice versus injustice, or my righteousness against an other, and thus give backing to governments like the Maduro regime, or say a so-called leftist regime in Nicaragua, or say the former USSR. We have seen examples historically, repeatedly. So we see with Maduro in our contemporary circumstance that has a radical, leftist, anti-imperialist rhetoric, or maybe even some genuine romantic sentiments, maybe even some real sentiments in general politically, even if at the same time they carry out policies and engage in practices that have nothing to do with the principles and goals of many common people on the left globally, as Maduro instead engages in corruption, breathtaking repression, blocking democratic expressions, and a neoliberal opening up to transnational corporations in times of desperation, and so on and so forth. Whether you are left, whether you are right, or non-ideological, or however you see yourself, Nicolas Maduro rigged the last presidential election. For the Venezuelan people, there is a confrontation between a corrupt, increasingly repressive, undemocratic, militaristic government on one hand, and active U.S. intervention, U.S. interference on the other hand. Venezuelans find themselves between a rock and a hard place. Historically, we have seen humans accept reactionary or fascist type solutions, or solutions that are decidedly authoritarian in their makeup, in their character, in reaction to their immediate plight, understanding certain tendencies of desperation. We can engage a rejection of imperialist intervention while in no way justifying or giving unconditional support to the authoritarian, spuriously socialist Maduro government, as we see now in motion on Fox News in real time, and with elements on CNN and MSNBC, and through a wave of alternative voices on platforms like YouTube, under neoliberal, all these groups of people, under neoliberal, highly ideological pretenses, identify Maduro for their own purposes with a democratic socialist experiment in the United States. So they seek to use this tragedy in Venezuela, to use Maduro and the people of Venezuela as props and you can see them as props right now on the television. What a disgraceful state of affairs. Our society so built, and you must look at yourself in the mirror. You must look at your society and say, what kind of society do you have when you use people in total desperation, in total need? They need you now. They needed you then. They need you now. They need you tomorrow. And you're not there, but you're willing to consume them as props. Props for your own little playground. I want to leave you, or I mean, I have a couple other things, but as I wind down here, I want to give you the words of one Edgardo Lander. This is a voice from Venezuela. He is a professor emeritus of sociology at the Central University in Caracas. He is a leading voice globally for a public intellectual culture. He actually advocates for one. It's one of the reasons why I am drawn to this man, as I am many different grassroots voices, which are hard to find here in the United States online from Venezuela. That being said, he's a leading voice globally for democratic, peaceful, and empowering solutions for the Venezuelan people. If you want to cultivate a discourse in the United States on Venezuela or even our own country, his voice is a good start. I recommend searching out his interviews online. His interviews are particularly illuminating. They're much more illuminating than maybe some of the articles and the papers I have read. Okay, Lander's recommendations for U.S. citizens as follows. Quote, this means actively rejecting economic sanctions and the threat of military intervention and pushing for a negotiated solution with multilateral participation, not unilateral intervention, as we are seeing unfold. And second, to recognize that there is an extremely severe social crisis in the country, malnutrition in breathtaking proportions, that a multilateral solidarity effort has to be made to help provide Venezuelans with food and medicines as an alternative to the politically motivated, militarily backed humanitarian U.S. aid, quote, humanitarian U.S. aid that is today threatening the country, end quote. So, when you see these pictures today of Venezuelans in the streets, who is responsible for this situation? It's not Juan Guaido. It's not Donald Trump. It's not Joe Biden. It's not Hillary Clinton. It's not Barack Obama. It's not your local fascist corporate master or corporate boss. It's not the neoliberal Democratic or Republican parties. It's not the ever-imperial John Monroe Doctrine Bolton. Certain reactionary forces will exploit this situation that we have allowed to happen. The Venezuelan people are our brothers and sisters and should bear some responsibility. But, as citizens of the world, we should share that responsibility instead of looking for who to blame, who to condemn, or watch the litany of alternative or leftist commentators engage a politics of self-righteousness and markets of sadness. Those markets of sadness as they increase their brand for their own profit by flagellating our, quote, establishment. We can start by looking in the mirror. We can start sharing responsibility through discourses with others. You get one life to live. Will you continue to genuflect to this corporate and financial domination, this corporate and financial governance of the world? What will you do? If you had one chance in millions, what are you prepared to do? In all of your days, all of your interactions, from this day to that, when do you start resisting? When do you start challenging? Saying, in this life, I will have freedom and security for myself and my brothers and sisters in Venezuela and throughout the world? Or are you meant to just be a consumerist, mindless users of other people, using them as props in your daily life as you anesthetize yourself with any amount of news and distractions and entertainment while you avoid what is going on as we speak? You cannot avoid these questions. Today, I tell you, I resist. Tomorrow, I resist in solidarity, and for as long as I breathe. You have my love, you have my mind, you have my body, you have my work. I leave you with a song, a Venezuelan song, a song of the people. Techos de Carton by Ali Primera. Good day and good luck.
Triste se oye la lluvia en los techos de cartón. Qué triste vive mi gente en las casas de cartón. Viene bajando el obrero, así arrastrando los pasos por el peso del sufrir. Mira que mucho sufrir, mira que pesa el sufrir. Arriba deja la mujer preñada, abajo está la ciudad y se pierden sus marañas. Hoy es lo mismo que ayer, es su vida sin mañana. Ahí cae la lluvia, viene el sufrimiento, pero si la lluvia pasa, ¿cuándo pasa el sufrimiento? ¿Cuándo viene la esperanza? Niños color de mi tierra, con sus mismas cicatrices, millonarios de lombrices. Y por eso, qué tristes viven los niños las casas de cartón. Qué alegres viven los perros, casa del explotador. Usted no lo va a creer, pero hay escuelas de perros y les dan educación. Pa' que no muerdan los diarios, pero el patrón hace años, muchos años, que está mordiendo el obrero. Qué triste se oye la lluvia en las casas de cartón. Qué lejos pasa la esperanza de los techos de cartón.